to have a mind that says, I am master of my body, I control myself in space, I control myself on floor level. It's a beautiful and immaculate machine. In, there, roll onto your back, just onto your back from here, pushing up to change direction, to come up front. I never put pen to paper when I'm making a work, and I never go into a studio with a set and cemented idea about what I'm going to do, because if you do that, you might miss something, some wonderful accident that either pours out of someone's head or out of their body. Go and then fall and push, and to come up and fall. It's lovely, that little thing on the shoulder's beautiful. There. Yeah.
It's coming down.
Yeah. So nice, that little feeling of balance on the shoulder, though. Up, in, that's it. Open, in, round, over to there, and up. Within everybody there are some beautiful secrets that actually people are longing to tell you. If you probe gently and lovingly, they'll tell you. I'm interested in the secrets that sometimes people don't even know about themselves.
Okay, nice.
Graeme, are you creating this right now?
Yeah.
Where's it coming from?
Well, some of it's dimly remembered from something I'm altering, and the rest is coming from Kim Walker.
I mean, he does things and then you see things that you want to do and just do them.
I know sort of the feel I want from it, the build that it needs musically. And I'm changing this because this was created on somebody else. And basically, I want to make something that Kim looks right in. But I mean, you can work very quickly with Kim because he gives so much. And he doesn't stand back and wait for the next creation. He's suggesting.
Well, how is he suggesting? How is he giving?
Well, I'll show something, and if it's not working, if it doesn't feel right for him, he'll do it with a variation. And if I like that variation, I'll say, well, I'll give a variation on that variation. So we just build. It's a layering process.
One thing leads to another.
Yes. That's how good choreography should happen.
But basically, you just take a deep breath, go out there, and something happens.
And stepping up, descend, turn, place, rond, tombe. Unless you're prepared to push the realm of reality out and expand on it, you don't make new discoveries about yourself. And I think, making self-discoveries is really very important. And I'm afraid I do use my media to find out more about myself. But then I have dancers too to work with who are very honest about themselves, and they're prepared to show me themselves, and therefore I have the most fabulously rich palette to work with. Paul Mercurio was very inspiring at that particular point of his career because he was just on the peak of becoming a really interesting artist from, just a very young boy. And he was just a young boy when we first did it. And it was about boyhood finding manhood.
It was sort of the perfect work because I was at an age where I was on that same sort of a trip, and I suppose Graeme saw that, which may have been one of the reasons why I choreographed it. I don't know. But I think the work went hand in hand with my experiences of the moment, and it was great because I could sort of use what was happening to me and apply it to the Voyager.
bodies are sexy, you know, whether people deny it. I mean, classical ballet sort of put a tutu, you know, a metre of tulle between you and the sexual organs. Contemporary dance tended to take that right away. I've never looked at dance as removed from sensuality and sexuality, and I think people look at beautiful young bodies and I don't think they look at it as removed either. It's easy to sort of put dance into the precious art category, but you know, these are bodies up there. Dance is a wonderful medium for fantasy, but it's through fantasy people find their best truths. And sometimes you've got to trick an audience into unlocking their own fantasies. And sometimes that takes a bit of shock treatment, sometimes it takes a crafty approach to get people to open their own minds. Okay. That's what from here. Chum, step, step, in, up. Sort of works musically. Gosh, smarty. He did doubles. That's what I thought. So vulgar.
You give me that. No, you give me that.
Okay, and the next one? 3, 2, 1, go. Boom, boom, ba, jump, step, step, step.
It's a chemistry. Graeme walks in the studio and then all of a sudden the atmosphere goes. I think sometimes there's a telepathy that you pick up, because sometimes Graeme will be working and he might get slightly stuck for a step or be thinking on something, and then I'll do something and Graeme go, that's just what I was thinking about.
Maybe pull back all the time. Do you know what I mean? Because in pulling the impetus in.
I think I need to pull it in.
Do you? I think as you drag it in at the end. Up and drag.
That was twisted. Maybe it's too far. Maybe I should stand.
Yes.
It's as I'm in there, when I'm coming down, I'm twisted. Well, I mean, I think, should I stand more in front of you so that it goes this way?
In, up, that's better. I see emotions through movement, and therefore people just become a vehicle for their emotions through movement. It's a weird way of seeing people, because you tend to abstract them into the way they represent themselves through movement. I mean, body language for me is one skill that I have to be able to read. he's been like that. He's been just the sort of centre of local eccentricity ever since I remember. Just great, just great. I think it rubbed off. The schoolhouse coming up here. Hey, slow down a bit. That's the schoolhouse. Mum and Dad, Betty and Gerald, were there with me. I had the front room. I was exposed to public life at an early age. I had all those windows surrounding me. That was my bedroom. And the school here. This is where Betty and Gerald reigned supreme. They ruled the town from the point of view of community activities. It was a lot smaller, a lot less glamorous. That tree wasn't nearly so big. But then I wasn't either. And I used to hone my skills on the monkey bars and develop the risk and daring, with which my choreography is noted now. And it was great. And the trees down the back, a beautiful fir tree where I would don a Zorro outfit, this mysterious black mask and a large cape. And I remember I'd hover in the trees feeling really wonderful. And one day I was there and there were some of these kids from the school and I was just silent and above them. And I felt so great. And one of them looked up and she said, "Hello, Graeme Murphy," and shattered every illusion that I had. I'd really thought that no one would ever recognise me. I was so disappointed. This craft shop here was the first house to have television in Mathina, and the whole town used to go and watch, and you could get huge milkshakes for 6pence. I mean, to the top, choco-block, fabulous. Blue Heaven was my favourite. I think the town looks really well preserved and lovingly kept. I think we were maybe slightly poorer and less well off in those days, all of us. We lived for adventures, you know, we were out there in the creek and we were looking for gold because we thought we'd find this huge nugget one day. Oh, I miss all that. That was fun. It was nice. Sawmill at Mathina. I was fascinated with it because I was interested in the way that people worked here, the way they moved and the way they handled the equipment. It had a style. It also had a frightening aspect because I at one stage thought I might end up working there myself. I was not doing too well at school. Fortunately, dance came along and I was rescued.
Hey, what do you reckon, ladies and gentlemen? That really? Come on, get that big hand. Just give it
When I did Nearly Beloved, I had the thinner very much in mind. But the overall theme of the work is about coming back to something, to try to recapture something and the danger of that. The bridegroom comes back some 30 years later, much the way I've come back now 30 years later. And it is the strangest feeling, of course. He wanted very much to capture what he ran out on his wedding day, that feeling of love that he'd left behind for the more sophisticated world. Parallels are quite incredible. Even coming back today, I feel that there is a sense of, at the same time, it's wonderful to know it's still here. I feel a sense of loss, that I don't belong to that community anymore.
Graeme, I just wanted to ask you one question about...
Excuse me?
About your obsession with lifts.
What obsession?
So how'd you first meet?
At ballet school, at the Australian Ballet School, when we were about 15 and 16. Graeme was the new young boy.
I was the runt of the
And
class.
yeah, so tiny that no one wanted him for pas de deux because, you know, you wanted to have a good partner so you'd look good. So everyone steered clear of him.
How'd you feel about that?
I had a real thing about partnering. I was really, you know, I really did have a complex because I was out of control. You know, the girls would start turning and I'd just be dragged in this sort of great whirlwind of movement, you know, and I'd just be whipped around the room. So it was not so good for me.
And the unfortunate thing was they thought by putting him with the biggest girls, he'd probably build up his strength, which was, you know, just...
Built up this huge complex.
Well, my first impression of Graeme was he was a rather skinny, small little boy from Tasmania who hadn't had much training. And what was he going to be like? Well, he turned out to be just that, a skinny little boy from Tasmania with not much training, but a lot of magic. And it was not until Peggy Van Praag arranged this choreographic workshop at the Princess Theatre in which Graeme did a work and used Janet that one became aware for the first time that he'd found a sort of muse, if you like, in Janet.
It emerged that Janet emerged. I mean, I found that I was featuring her so that she actually became the central theme of that work and consequently most works ever since. It's quite interesting.
I mean, it was the first time I'd ever been choreographed on, so it was a new experience for me too, and I mean, a wonderful one that I'll never forget. And I mean, I still feel those things every time Graeme choreographs now. Just do one. Go down. What are we up to yet with the song? Bum, bum. Da-da-da. You do it.
I've been getting a bit late in this technique.
I'll just mark this. Did you do the leg?
No, because I was going to kick you. Did you borrow that or did I spring you up?
I had to borrow that time.
So, guys, is it always like this?
You mean as easy as this?
Yeah. Looks quite smooth.
No.
It's usually a bit more painful, but we have days when we sort of actually like working with each other and days when we just really can't do more than 2 steps together and we're screaming.
So what's kept you working together, do you think?
I mean, the pain of working with Janet aside, because it's really not easy, and vice versa, I know it's not easy, the results are usually really lovely. And
It's just something that's there naturally, you know? I mean, I can relate to him in absolutely any way I want to when I'm dancing. I practically know what he's going to do before he does it, and I think it's the same thing with him too. And I mean, that makes for a lovely combination. But I mean, I think it's too the passion that we feel for one another. I mean, I love him. But, I hate him too. But, I mean, you've got to have both poles, don't you?
Someday, when I'm awfully low, when the world is cold, I will feel a glow just thinking of you and the way you look tonight.
it was actually quite a while between wanting to dance and being allowed to. My parents were reluctant at first, but I nagged on, and when they actually finally relented, they were so supportive. In fact, this is the route that they would drive me to Launceston for my once-a-week lesson. They were incredible because, I mean, it really ruined their whole social life to make this long trek from Athena to Launceston on a weekly basis. At Athena, for instance, the school contests were the main events, the main entertainment. People would flock from all the neighbouring farms and to see their kids perform. And I remember thinking, how wonderful some of these big kick lines that Betty would organise, with these rather healthy-looking farm girls at Athena.
How much of a star were you each time?
I think I was probably a little too featured, because, with the stage manager and the artistic director being my parents, I think I probably got more than my fair share.
Boy, he was a natural. He really was. He was a natural.
Always a starter.
He just loved it. He absolutely adored the limelight. I'm sure of that.
Show off.
Yes.
I know I was
But
obnoxious.
not in a precocious way. I think it was
He actually was
an
there to help
enjoyable.
carry the show.
It was an enjoyable thing for him.
Do you think wanting to be a dancer in this time, around 1960, was unusual?
Well, yes, it was. It was almost unheard of, I suppose, for boys especially, to be thinking of that. It was rather fanciful, I suppose, for a lot of people who wouldn't understand. But as far as I was concerned, it was Graeme. It was what he wanted to do. And he loved it, loved the movement, and why shouldn't he?
Didn't worry him that other people might think it's a little bit sissy or something of that nature. He was still determined to go ahead with it.
But I've decided that it's because if you actually totally believe that what you're doing is right. You have an air of confidence about what you do. You just push out this belief and this positive thing. And someone said to me just recently, someone I was at school with, you know, I've never seen you in trouble. You never got into a fight over it. Everyone knew you were a dancer. And yet, you know, no one ever gave you a hard time. How come?
I think they just accepted that it was part of Graeme.
Jean Cocteau was a very big influence quite early in my career. I remember the joy I felt when I was first introduced to his work through film mostly. And that visual media was just a real link into the way I wanted to create. I think the extremities that he plumbed when he was doing his work, whichever it was, whether it was poetry or tapestry or painting or filmmaking, he went for broke, and I liked that. And I thought dance was lacking that a bit. Dance seemed to me to be a bit cautious. The same influence that it had on Cocteau when Diaghilev said, "Astonish me," probably was what I tried to do quite early on. My first major full-length work was a work called Poppy. It was actually the first original full-length Australian work.
Why Poppy?
Poppy because of the opium connotation with Cocteau, because, again, in Cocteau's excesses, he turned to drugs and created some of his most extraordinary works under that influence. I know that the instinctive aspect of my creativity is the strongest. And when I do something instinctively, it gives me much more joy than when I'm contrived and sound in my craftsmanship.
Je m'aime la rue Guichet quand la nuit dit une lettre contre mon dormir. Je me figure habite la nuit. Je n'aime pas dormir quand ta figure habite la nuit contre mon cou. Car je pense à la mort, laquelle vient trop vite. Car je pense à la mort, 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 car je pense à la mort.
If we hadn't gone for broke, if there hadn't been the nude scene, if it hadn't been a drug-related subject matter, if it hadn't been as rich as it was, I don't think we'd be where we are in terms. I think we'd still be cautiously tiptoeing around. So the Astonish Me approach really worked for us.
Poppy, I didn't particularly like it when I saw it about 9 years ago here. I thought it showed that he was very theatrical, very innovative, but basically it was rather hollow and showed the tendency to get into kitsch that he sometimes has.
Cranach is a difficult work, I think mainly because of the music. I love the invention in it, and I went to see it 3 times. Each time I found the music quite different. Each time I found that after about half an hour it was driving me to a state of despair. But that's the kind of thing that that music actually does to you.
Some rooms, again, I thought that was a bit empty. There was lots of waffling around and banners waving and things like that. But it had a marvellous thing called Bathroom, which I thought was very funny, very dramatic, very eccentric, and a great piece of theatre and a great piece of dancing. So this was something fine in the middle of something not so fine.
In Nearly Beloved, I think that the last section about the wedding that didn't happen is one of his great works.
I did see Fire and Ice on television. I thought it was a load of old cobblers. I mean, here are the 2 greatest skaters in the world, and they hardly did any skating.
Do you care what the critics say?
You know, that's really, you know, when it pleases your ego, when they tell you how fabulous you are, you care wildly. When they run you into the ground, you suffer a sting and a hurt. But over the years, I think you become your best critic yourself. And sometimes it's sort of a relief when a work that you know quite isn't up to patch and people are at least smart enough to say that wasn't one of his best. Just twist your body and pick it, yeah. Yeah, think more from here, think more preparation that way, because then you'll, if you let it drop, then you'll be able to push it back on that side.
Okay.
Up and over, up, up. Yeah, you can actually, if you prefer spot down,
Spot
so you
down.
really get the whole line of the body curves into it. That's it. Yeah, nice. Leave it wide, and boom, nice. Okay, yeah, boom. And this one, boom, boom, boom. Try and put the staccato into it. Hit. Yeah, you've got to be going hit, hit, hit. You've got to be forward on your leg, a touch. That's it. Embracing the past, take it really broad.
You don't want that...
Yes, it's a cross.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom. And the head lifts out. And out of that, push the leg, push it up, and just get that, try and get that little feeling of lilt before you go back down. And in, so lovely. In, rond, push it.
I got stuck.
In, 2, twist, rond. Up, in, step, boom. 1 and 2 and up and 1, sail, in. Tap, boom. Okay, so when you're ready. Thanks, Nigel. It's okay. You want to go again?
I don't know if
I'm sorry.
I always feel... I'm feeling late on that now. Sorry.
Down and rond. Coupe. Step. Two, 3, 1, 2. Drift. Okay. Don't worry. Don't worry. Don't worry. I felt it was...
Yeah, it didn't feel right.
I think the arabesque is earlier. I think you should drift onto that, and the first hit should be the change.
Yeah.
Try that. One, two, three. Yeah. So you are actually early because the up, roll, up, one. That's it. Thanks. Nice, broad lift. One. Lovely.
I used to think, oh, so the audience is, you know, I've just had a wonderful performance and it's all lovely. And you go and you take off your makeup and you pack your bag and you walk out of the theatre and go home and sit and watch telly.
And so what?
And so what? And I used to think, is this all life is meant to be?
Where do elephants go when they die? Where do dancers go when they stop dancing? The life after is an important part, and I try to inject that ongoing feeling into my dances, that, you know, it is important to have links with real world, because that's where you end up, you know. This fantasy kingdom that we love so much is not forever.
Kelvin, where do you go when you stop dancing?
So this is where I come occasionally to escape when I'm allowed. And this is Diana Dawes, who mows the lawn, looks after the house while I'm away, and loves bread. Very nice, huh? I'm here. Personal fears? I suppose the fear of loneliness, the fear of being alone. But that's sort of usually alleviated by the people that I'm working with. I always feel like I belong to a unit. I belong to a family. The aging fear is a ridiculous one that haunts me. But I think it's, you know, I think it's the dancer's greatest fear. I think the body conking out.
Shall we dance or keep on moving? Shall we dance and walk on air? Shall we give in to despair? Or shall we dance with never a care? Life is short, we're growing older, don't you be? And also red, you better dance the way you dance to a man. Dance whenever you can. Drop that long face, come on, have your fling. Why keep nursing the blues? If you want this whole world on the string, put on your dancing shoes, stop wasting time. Put on your dancing shoes, watch your spirits fly. Shall we dance or keep on moving? Shall we dance and walk on air? Shall we give in to despair? Or shall we dance with never a care? Life is short, we're growing older, don't you be? And also red, you better dance the way you dance to a man. Dance whenever you can. Dance whenever you can.
They've got various, depending on which audience they have.
Anyway, Chronog.
Indigestion.
in Europe, Kroneck is probably the most important work written since The Rite of Spring, together with a handful of others. And I waited 10 years before I approached Graeme Murphy with a score which had the depth. I mean, what can you bring Graeme Murphy? What could you bring Balanchine or Diaghilev or Cunningham? I mean, there are people on 3 continents who altered the history of art in their country. And I think when it came to Murphy's turn, Kroneck, there was no other work. It went to him, and it altered everything.
See, I wouldn't have known about it except for Roger, really. I didn't know that a work of that magnitude existed, that a work had been created for dance, that 10 years after its first performance had never been performed because everyone ran a mile screaming.
The music was so relentless, and the movement was also relentless, but it sort of in some ways didn't go hand in hand with the music. They were two very separate identities. And so movement-wise, with what we normally do with Graeme, I suppose it was a continuation and an extension, but the music was what I think drove me a little bit batty.
Everyone a bit batty after about the 3-week season.
I was going to say 3 performances.
Yeah.
No.
It actually used to drive you. The feeling was that you were being driven.
It wasn't one of those things like, oh, the music will help me through. The music was its own strength and had to be confronted. And it had to be confronted for, you know, the odd 80 minutes on stage without an interval. And the audience had to come with that same sense of bravery that the dancers did. You know, when Janet Vernon first pointed her immaculate foot on stage, that was like a key opening a door that could not be closed for the next 80 minutes, or perhaps in some people's mind forever. In my mind, you know, that door having been opened really has changed me incredibly.
The most extraordinary feat of dancing.
Yeah.
This kind of opening. There were some moments from total silence, because Janus likes silence, and which kind of eat into the work like music's arch enemy. But the wonderful thing for me was like this lid of hell opened every night, and people were going, oh, it was this swimming beauty kind of reaching into kind of extremes, you know, gutters to the pinnacles, Wagnerian kind of extreme.
I mean, people hated the score, okay. You can hate it, but you can't ignore something that is as essential as physical as a building that you entered into every night, you know?
choreograher's history, great history, monumental history, and I feel now it's fallen to me, it's like my destiny to have met Graeme Murphy and to experience this huge musical catharsis with him. I find it so deeply moving watching Sydney dance, because when I leave I'm being uprooted from something which is probably the most meaningful thing to me of all, watching this great genius with his family doing something for his own country, which is deeply meaningful.
Roger, please. Have some salmon quickly.
I'm going to leave Europe and come back here as a result of what you've done.
I'm still so excited by the fact that dance has other places to go, and I'm not exactly sure where. I just know that I want to be a part of any new direction that this company takes. I know that we could go on just cashing in, just regurgitating the format, but I don't think that's the answer. I think the answer is to say, okay, I'm brave enough. Are you going to come with me on the next 10 years? I don't know where we're going yet. Let's find it together.